Welcome to the Executive Coaching Podcast, where Executive Coach Alicia Cowan will discuss leadership topics and coaching solutions to tackle the most difficult problems that keep you from leading your team to success.
Hey there, leaders. It's Alicia Cowan, and welcome to episode number 16 of the Executive Coaching Podcast. So, as I normally do in the beginning of my podcast, I like to talk a little bit about a personal update. So, we are recording this at the end of June, and my mother-in-law is closing on her house in a mere 2 days. We're very excited to welcome her to the Wesley Chapel, Florida area, officially as a homeowner. She is a very fast decision maker and already purchased a pool to start to get installed into this backyard of this new home. And we are really just getting ready for the 4th of July weekend. That's just right around the corner here. And so just summer fun continues here. And my house, again, still working through getting that drywall installed, which is the same update I've given for quite a few updates on the house. So that's what's going on here. So I have been coaching like crazy recently and talking to you. And as I've been talking to leaders, this whole concept that was presented to me from another podcast that I listened to really related to a lot of the work that I've been doing with you as leaders. And so I'm going to introduce today this concept of the invisible work. And what I mean by that is it's truly when you get to a certain level of leadership, it's really not about learning the really tactical skills anymore. It's not about the tactics. And I think that a lot of times when we go through different phases of leadership, we recognize that there is a shift and a change in what we need to do and what we need to learn. But I think for some reason, at times, at certain levels of becoming an executive, we really struggle, at least from what I've seen, about some of this work that needs to be done. That is what I call the quote unquote invisible work, and the things that need to be learned and practiced and put into place that trick us into thinking that something has gone wrong with our leadership and our leadership style and where we're at. And so I'm hoping to talk through some of like what I mean by that invisible work and how you can potentially let some of that guilt go based on what we're going to talk about today and help you work through and understand this is just a normal part of it. So let me talk a little bit more about what I mean here. I think when we become managers for the very first time and we start leading people, I think one of the really identity shifts that we make and one of the things that we learn quickly is that delegating is very important. And if done right and done well, we learn that becoming a manager allows us to do work through others, that it's not about you anymore. It's about the team that you're leading and the skills that they're developing and the work that they're producing. And you learn to delegate and you learn to lead through delegation well. And that realization of not holding on to work, not releasing, right? And that lesson comes as you become a manager. Right. We all remember that one. Again, I'm talking to you as senior leaders, that first time that you really pick up that knowledge, right? I think that's a big milestone for managers and one that we can very easily identify with. I'm going to talk about it in the next phase. The next phase is like when we become senior leaders for the first time of a large team, right? That identity shift that needs to happen. So at that point, you may be more tenured in your career, and a lot of the success that you've seen, you've relied on skills that you've built up along the way and skills that you've developed, and you've seen success. Otherwise, you wouldn't be at a senior level role within your organization. So you're feeling good, right? Because you've built up the skill set and you've had a pile of successes that have gotten you there. So you're feeling confident. So when you become a senior leader, at times there is this identity shift that happens as you take on a larger team. And perhaps it's a different role in a different company, leading a larger team. Perhaps it's from the same organization. It doesn't really matter. Seen it all. Let me give you some examples of what that identity shift looks like. I've been coaching quite a few of you at this level. And I will say that sometimes who you were in that previous role, the success that brought you to the level that you're at currently may not necessarily apply in taking you forward. Absolutely, it's the foundation. But at times, like what I'm seeing is sometimes it's like identity shift that needs to happen that some of you are going through. And what you're learning is, the new habits and the new pieces of accountability that you need to have. There is a difference between being a leader of leaders and a leader people that are managing people, and making that, again, that big leap into that team, maybe globally dispersed or maybe broadly spread across the organization. And there's just this shift that needs to happen, this level of influence that you need to have. And again, this is all the invisible work that I'm talking about. So I'll give you some examples of what I've heard to maybe help you maybe identify with what's happening here. But at this level, it really is the invisible work is taking on a different identity. And it doesn't mean, I'm not saying like having an identity crisis or taking an identity, but you are taking on a different level of leadership and a different shift with your identity of, again, what maybe got you here to this level, it may not get you there, right? So what I mean by that, so one leader that I was talking to was an executive that was brought in to a new team. Her role was really to help, quote unquote, clean up a team that wasn't performing well. She was, coming in to essentially set new level of accountability, a new level of expectation, and really level up. And it was a challenge. And a lot of the quotes that she had were, thoughts that she's thinking was that I've been such a high performer in previous companies and similar roles. I don't understand why this is so difficult, why I'm struggling now. And not taking accountability into account the level of accountability that she had to put into place. And there was friction. There was friction amongst the team that was fighting a little bit against this accountability and fighting and struggling with her leadership. And again, some of these people were just not the right fit for the role and the organization. But she took all of that as meaning that she wasn't successful in her role. And really, again, was trying to look back to past successes and not really understanding that she had to take on a different identity and a different level of leadership. And at times it was just really going to be difficult. This invisible work of doing new things, even though the role or the title or the job may be similar, but the skill set and the leadership expectation were different for her. So we talked a lot about that and that new identity that she had to shift without making it mean that something had gone wrong with her leadership and where she was at. Another one is, again, I'm talking about, again, ascending into senior levels of leadership and some of those invisible struggles. Sometimes it's just getting to that level and then struggling with imposter syndrome. And again, I know a lot of you identify with this. I talked about this in a previous episode just on imposter syndrome, but a lot of that's invisible work, right? There's nothing really tactical that you do that's like you overcome imposter syndrome. But some of you that are ascending to different levels of leadership are getting into these roles. And some of the thoughts that I hear that you're saying is like, how did I even get here? Meaning, am I worthy enough to be in this role? Am I enough? Am I good enough? And looking at credentials and saying, maybe I'm not supposed to be in this role. And again, all of that work of really, again, coming into a new identity of, yes, I belong in this role as a senior leader, is invisible stuff that you have to work through. It's not a visible tactical skill that you're working through. It's all that mental work to come into your new identity, your worthiness. Okay. Another thing I see big time is the new habits that you might need to have as a senior leader, and what professional and personal habits have to be put into place in order for you to maintain this new level of success. What I mean by those habits is the expectation, the pull on your time is a big one. And again, I talked about time management and managing your time in a previous episode too. And I know, again, wildly popular because I know this one hits home. Professional time, all of a sudden you are asked to be in a lot more meetings at times, a lot more inundated with a lot more email and messaging and reviewing and signing off and managing conflict. And right, there's a lot more pull on your time as a leader. And at times work travel starts to become a big part and component of your week to week life. And then there is all the personal pull on your time. And, working through what that, again, I talked about the care team in the last episode, but sometimes what that care, that extra support needs to look like at home and in your personal life. And again, the invisible work that it takes to work through that. And then some of the guilt, if you are a caretaker of loved ones, and at times that guilt can pull on you. Again, how you're spending your time and where you're prioritizing your time can sometimes trigger feelings of guilt. I was just talking to one of you as my clients as a senior leader, and talking about this message from her son that was really just impactful on her about, the amount of travel that she was doing, and just feeling guilty about him missing her, and feeling like, am I doing what I really want to be doing, and evaluating. And again, the answer was still yes. She was still passionate about the work that she was doing and being a mom, of course, but just that pull and the invisible work that it takes to move through it and be comfortable in your decisions, and to be confident as a leader in what you're doing personally and professionally. No one is talking about it as much and giving credit to some of that work that needs to be done. And the last one, I think relationships at work, a lot of what I'm hearing. And when you get, again, to a level of a senior leader, you're interacting more with, of course, you have a lot more direct reports, but then you have this big peer set, because as a senior leader, you're interacting with so many people, different people across the organization. And some of those dynamics and the pull and push for resources within the organization can be challenging. So I was talking to a senior leader earlier this week, and talking about the invisible work of working through the ability to have difficult conversations, of course, again, with direct reports, but also with peers, and thinking that dynamic should be going differently than it currently is. The invisible work is to be able to get through it, and to be able to emotionally manage and professionally manage yourself, and work through the skill set of having a difficult conversation with someone that you interact with all the time. So that's some of the struggles that I'm seeing, again, for more of the leaders that are just newly ascended into either new roles within the organization, or maybe switching roles at different companies. And then there's this other set that some of you are tenured senior leaders, and some of you have been in your roles for a really, really long time. And there's a whole another set of invisible work that's happening there as well. One thing, again, that I'm seeing here, some of the stories that I'll share with you, is you now at a level where you are a senior leader within the organization, and you want to still continue to ascend, and maybe it's to certain C-suite levels, or, different levels within or even being a C-suite leader and wanting to take on more. But at times, communicating with your boss, who is the CEO of the organization, is tricky. And I'm hearing that, right? You have a limited amount of time, you have a limited amount of exposure. And at times that conversation can be difficult to get more development, more opportunity for growth, more just desire for getting in front of that leader and advocating for yourself. Doesn't always happen easily. I've also heard from you, in some of you in those roles, you're in senior levels of leadership and executive leadership, and you go to the leader and you're asking for development for more and what you can do. And at times the answer is simply just more time and role. Just keep doing what you're doing, keep staying in your role, staying in your position, and we'll see what happens, right? And for a lot of you that are highly accomplished and very driven, it's not enough. I'm not saying that leader should change. However, the invisible work for yourself is figuring out what that's going to look like. How do you get that development that may not come from that leader? And you may not get the answers that you're looking for about your career development, your career path from your direct boss. Invisible work, my friends. So another thing that I'm seeing is you're in that C-suite level leadership role, potentially, or a senior level role, and you've gotten the title that you've long sought after. You've gotten to the level, pay, title, hierarchy, all that within the organization. You're excited. But then it starts to sink in, and you're like, what's next? I've arrived, but now what? I thought I'd be happier here and I'm still frustrated. And now what do I do? And you start looking around and you're like, well, what's next? Right. So that is the invisible work. And so I have coached a lot of you on a lot of these situations that I'm talking about today. And again, that's why I can pull, that's why I do this. I pull from some of the conversations that I'm hearing. And once I start to see themes develop, I want to bring it to you here. So what do we do? Right? What do we do? And I'll talk about a little bit of the coaching that I do around this. So I guess what I'm saying is a lot of these scenarios, again, while I know it feels doom and gloom because I just listed off a lot of tough scenarios, but I think realizing and just being aware that there is so much invisible work that we don't talk about all the time as leaders, and knowing that that's completely 100% normal. There is so much stuff that has to be done when you get to the senior and the executive levels that people just they're not aware of. They think by the time that you get to that level, like you've got it all figured out, that everything's going fine, that wow, how could you have any problems when you're at that level, that title, that pay level, right? But I think what people don't see, and this isn't a woe is me thing, or right, this isn't me, but I think that what people don't see is it actually takes a lot of emotional management. There's a lot that goes on beneath the surface to make it look as if to the organization everything is going well, smooth, calm, right? And that emotional management actually is a lot of work. So there's a lot of invisible work that has to happen. And I want to just demystify it and say, nothing's gone wrong. And these challenges are 100% completely normal. And I think because I've been able to talk to so many of you and kind of see behind the curtain and talking to executives and understanding it, to realize that these challenges are just completely normal and we're not really talking about them. So I'm here to expose this to you and to say, a lot of you, we're just not saying it. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist. And so please know that there's a lot of comfort in feeling that you're not alone. All right. The second thing is to give some space and time to do the invisible work. As executives, we have so much on our plate. There's so much going on. Again, I talked about personal and professional pulls on our time and our priorities. And being dedicated to giving yourself grace, giving yourself time and space to do the invisible work, and realize, again, because we've normalized this now, that it's not just tactical stuff. You can't go to a textbook answer or a class and always get these type of skill sets, and right, you just don't learn it and get certified in it and check the box and move on. It's not just tactics anymore. There is invisible work to be done around all of these things in order to get you, again, where you want to be, where you want to go. So you can have the option of doing it yourself. So please know that you can give yourself space and time, work through these things, and it is possible to work through these things. Or another option I want to offer you is, of course, get a coach. Get a coach. Coaching can provide just this really bespoke, customized guidance for you. And that's what I do. I think a lot of people want to know, what the program looks like when you go into coaching. Well, for me, what I've seen with executives is you need customized guidance that's tailored towards your development journey. Like what's going on and how do we help you towards your next step? Like what is customized for you? And I think giving yourself that gift, it can just help you speed things along to get things to where you want to be a lot quicker. Now, again, a lot of you are highly driven, highly accomplished individuals. So you can get there yourself, but how fast do you want to do it? And that's the question. And I think the importance is to get to that point where you can navigate some of these really complex dynamics with confidence. Because again, they don't just go away once you're an executive. It doesn't just poof and all your problems dissipate. They actually get more challenging, and giving you a really safe, confidential space to explore what your leadership style is, really give you an attainable, authentic approach to build those necessary skills and that executive presence that's required for your senior level or your executive level of leadership is so important. So again, if you are someone that is struggling with this, I am so happy to provide that customized guidance for you. We can do this together. If you want to do a consult call, we just can jump on and start talking about your issues. I can help give you some tips and tricks right away, and we can decide if this is the right fit for you. And if it's not me, get it, totally fine. But I implore you, definitely do the work, do the invisible work, because that is what takes you from being just someone that has assumed the title and gotten to that level. And again, even though you've gotten there, you may still struggle with some things. That's the difference between staying and sitting and struggling in those moments, or catapulting yourself to what's next and getting to through the invisible work, and then getting to what's next, getting to the level of success where you feel you can sustain all of this invisible work and get through it in a much quicker, smoother, easier way. Okay. As always, thank you so much for listening. I hope this is helpful for you. And if you know anybody that is struggling with some of the invisible work that we don't talk about, share this with them. So appreciate it. As always, you can reach me at my website, aliciacowancoaching.com, all in the show notes. And I will see you next time. Thanks, friends. Bye.
Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Executive Coaching Podcast with Alicia Cowan. If you're ready to have an executive coach who's ready to help you lead your team to success, then book an introductory call at aliciacowancoaching.com/call.